Assemble! Stay dandy, baby. A game of tag gets intense in another awesome episode of Tower of God. Hello, my friends, and welcome to another review of the Tower of God anime series, and this was another amazing episode of the series. It's just great how every single episode manages to be just as entertaining as the last, with twists and turns, solid characterizations, and always one hell of a cliffhanger ending, and this episode had just that. Before I begin my review, I just want to thank you guys again for continuing to watch these videos, giving me lots of great comments, liking the videos. It really is amazing. If you guys want to help support these a little bit more, make sure to check out my Patreon in the description box below. If you make a donation, I'll review an anime series of your choice. Also, before I begin my review, I just want to mention that a lot of people made comments about the fact that I did not mention some of the finer details about the Princesses of Jihad in the last episode. I do apologize for that, as it is some pretty big information. The main reason why these princesses are not allowed to procreate or form families is because they're actually gifted the power from the king himself, and he does not want that being spread out amongst the masses. He wants to sort of control that power, so to speak. So that's a pretty interesting dynamic for those princesses right there, as they're kept in check the entire time, and it makes even more sense as to why Anok's mother, the true Anok, was killed. So the entire first half of the episode, or really I should say 90% of the episode, is devoted to Team A as they try their best to actually win this game of tag against Quant. And Kuhn, being the incredibly resourceful character that he is remarkably entertaining in this episode. We already know that he always has some sort of like plan A, B, or even C up his sleeve, but I didn't expect it playing out the way that it actually did in this episode. In fact, I should probably go ahead and just say spoiler warning. If you haven't watched this episode, please go watch it before you watch the rest of this review, because the big reveal at the end of this episode was honestly kind of shocking in my opinion, especially how everything was sort of set up at the end of the last episode, with Kuhn saying that Bam is going to lose and that's just going to be the end of it. Basically, Kuhn was playing his team the entire time. He actually had this whole plan that was actually going to involve making it seem like Team A was going to win, when really he was actually setting them up to lose. The build up to all of this is really great, because you get to see Quant just completely destroying all of these guys with his skills, which basically just amounts to him moving really fast and fighting like a freaking ninja. There's a lot of really great scenes here, in particular this one moment where he punches this guy, which looks painful as a mother, I have to say. It's also worth mentioning that apparently Quant is not even able to use like his full potential of what he can use with his power or manipulating Shinsu in any way. So just imagine what this guy is fully capable of when he has no restraints. And predictably, of course, Quant just manages to walk through all of his opponents like Godzilla walking through Tokyo. Nothing manages to stop this guy until he comes face to face with Kuhn, a character which you can never underestimate. But then we come to the big twist of the episode, where Quant comes face to face with Kuhn, who's just casually hanging out on the bridge. We get to see that earlier, as Anok was making her way across the bridge, she met up with Kuhn, who decided to use his lighthouse that she could stand on and sort of lower her below the bridge to sort of hide away from Quant, as well as to sort of use her as a little bit of bait to get him to go down into the dark abyss. Of course, Quant is a very smart individual when it comes to sensing the power of Shinsu, and that's when he decides to make this incredible move where he grabs onto Kuhn and jumps over the side of this massive bridge going directly into the darkness. And this is something that it seems like Kuhn is really shocked by, that is until it actually is all a part of his plan. He manages to separate himself away from Quant, and he has created a pulley system with Anok. She has used her power of the Green April connected to both him and the actual lighthouse, allowing her to sort of just go right up to the top of the bridge and make her way to victory. However, it's actually going to have another twist. Yes, this is just one of those episodes where you think something's going to play out the way you think it's going to, and boom, they just keep pulling the rug out from underneath you. So Quant makes his way to the bottom again of this massive structure, and he's predictably, of course, really pissed off, knowing that there's no way he's going to be able to make it to the top, when suddenly he actually receives some help from nowhere. Now, initially, they don't show you actually what happens, and we get to see that he just makes his way, surprisingly, to the very top of this structure, manages to take away the badge from Anok, and it looks like Team A loses. That's right, they lose, but this was all intentional. This was all the construct of Kuhn. Basically, what happened here is that he connected with the character of Lao Ro, and when Quant went to the bottom, he said that he would use Lao Ro's abilities to pull him to the top. But the reason for this is simply so that the team could lose, so that Team B could actually have a chance. What Kuhn is doing here is that he's actually trying to create a team, his very own personal Avengers, if you will. And the only way that he's going to get them is that a lot of those people that are on Team B are going to have to pass this test and get more points. Bam included. So this has all been this like crazy plan that he's come up with to ensure that these people are going to pass so that he can team up with them later. And that, my friends, is friggin' brilliant. Towards the end of the episode, Team B is getting ready to jump into the tag game, and this time I think Quant is going to take it a lot more seriously, especially after he was sort of embarrassed over the fact that he had to rely on the regulars' help in order to actually win this competition. This time, I think he's really going to push things to the limit. But there's a number of interesting scenes here, some of which kind of confuse me, and others which I think are kind of, well, strange to say the least. First off, I didn't expect that we were actually going to get any backstory from the character of Serena. She seemed like kind of just a one-off character who was just there to sort of fill a slot, but they managed to build her up in a pretty interesting way in this episode, showing us her backstory and how she became involved in this competition to potentially climb the tower. And it's something that she seems to have a lot of doubts with at this point, considering that when compared to a lot of the other people in this competition, well, she's frankly just not as strong or powerful. But we get to see that in her backstory, she was something of a cat burglar, and she was a part of this all-female group, and they were trying to steal some stuff on a ship when suddenly they were attacked by a mysterious ranker who's completely shown in shadow and silhouette. They don't want to show us this character, so we might see them again, and apparently this character has the ability to have all of these blades come off of their body, and basically her entire team just gets annihilated. We're talking Mortal Kombat fatality style. They are all dead as shit. Completely cut in half, decapitated, the whole nine. They are dead. And as Serena looks like she was about to be hunted down and killed by this ranker, suddenly she is met by Hadon from the very first episode of the series, who gives her the ability to climb the tower, at least potentially. What I love about this setup, again, is that they're taking this side character who seems almost like they're not important, but they're using them as a footstool to show us how people get involved in this battle, how they met Hadon, how they met another one of the administrators, how they got involved in this testing thing to try and climb the tower. It's interesting because not only does it develop a character, but the world itself. Again, one of the biggest strengths of Tower of God. While Team B doesn't really seem like they're as strong as Team A, they do have some pretty heavy players on their team, such as Hots, Bam, and of course the princess in Dorsey, who sort of nominates herself as leader of the group. And that leads to what might be one of the weirdest endings that I've ever seen from the series. We get to see that all of the fishermen are going to be battling against Quant and probably getting their asses completely handed to them. Personally, I can't wait to see what's going to happen when Hots goes up against Quant. I mean, what is he going to do against this crazy dual-wielding samurai? But it's in Dorsey who manages to be really interesting, as at the end of the episode, she seems to be betraying members of her team for some mysterious reason. I don't know what this princess's plan is, but inquiring minds want to know, and I cannot wait to see in the next episode of Tower of God. So what's the rundown on this episode of Tower of God? Again, another high quality, amazing, and super intriguing episode filled with just everything you could potentially want from an anime series, with action, development, and even a little bit of comedy. The scene of Rack Wraith Razor and that one big guy having a chocolate bar eating contest is ridiculous and over the top, but it works so well with the series, and it adds a little bit of levity to those moments where things get really serious. Most of this episode really impressed me with overall, again, its setting and its action set pieces. I love this entire structure that they're actually battling, and it's basically just like this giant cylindrical staircase and a giant bridge, but it leads itself to a lot of like really interesting potential. The fact that it's all sort of shrouded in shadow and Quant can sort of come from any direction, it makes him a surprisingly creepy character and also really funny at the same time, as of course he seems to be having a lot of fun going through this competition, and the fact that he's restricted in using his abilities just makes you realize that these rankers are freaking insane. We really haven't seen anything yet compared to what we saw at the beginning of the series. This is all still the appetizer before we get to the main course courts of Tower of God, and it still manages to be really great. There are so many little scenes in this episode that I think that are incredibly intriguing, and I'm not just talking about the action stuff. Like, the entire backstory of Serena, I think, served a really big purpose of showing a little bit more how being able to climb the tower is possible, how you actually get involved in it, how you can be brought in by one of these administrator type characters like Hadon. But then there's this one small scene with Ho, who is still continuing to be one of the weirdest characters from the entire show, and mysterious and creepy all at the same time. He's actually the one who's listening to Serena's backstory this entire time, and he seems incredibly malicious with what his current intent is actually going to be. I mean, we already got hints to this in the last episode, going into the backstory of his people, and again, doing it all with animation and not just telling the viewer, which I think is absolutely remarkable. It just works really well. Otherwise, I think this episode is definitely sold by all of the moments with Kuhn and the amazing plan that he came up with to not only help out Bam and his team, but to also give a lot of confidence to his other team members without sort of like stealing their thunder as well. He sort of like act as the sacrificial pawn for making this happen, and the way that he calculated it and made it happen was just genius. Every scene that involved Kuhn in this episode made me realize that I'm never really going to know what this guy is actually planning. It's always going to get me excited to see what sort of like crazy plan he's going to come up with, how he's going to set it up, and watching that domino effect happen of how it's actually going to play out, I think is going to be one of the most intriguing things about this series. Production value wise, it also helps that this was another fantastic looking episode, which was very consistent in terms of its character design, its action, its animation. I really hope if season 2 comes that they're going to continue to use this production company and continue to make it this high quality, because this show looks good. It has great production value. The music cues are really good and appropriate. And even though every episode seems jam-packed with content, it's still really easy to follow. In fact, the reason that I thought this episode was so good is because it felt like it was over in the blink of an eye. To me, that's like the sign of a good episode. It shows that you're really getting sucked into the experience, and this is just another one of those episodes. I loved this episode of Tower of God, which is why I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5. You guys need to check it out, and I would love to hear your thoughts all about it in the comment section below. What did you think about this episode? The big tag game with Team A, how things are going to go with Team B. What did you think of Kuhn's plan? Did you have any favorite scenes or character moments from this episode? Was there anything I missed in this episode that you want me to talk about in the next review? And what do you guys hope to see from the rest of the very first season of Tower of God? Let's discuss all of it in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for watching this review. Please subscribe to my channel for more reviews just like this one, as well as a ton of other videos. And make sure to hit that like button. It helps out these videos tremendously. And like I said at the beginning of the video, please check out my Patreon in the description box below. I would really appreciate it. So there it is, guys. I'll see you all next time. And as always, stay damn, baby.